It had been nearly an hour and a half since the ships disappeared into the gray haze. Oh! Sorry, didn't see you there. Just catching up on some light reading. Hi, my name is Josh, better known as Mr. Fish. The adventure you're about to embark on is a long one. Before we get started, I just wanted to say, if you need to, use the restroom, grab a snack, pop some popcorn, and go ahead and lay back, because this is an adventure for all of us.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back into the water.
Hey, welcome back to the Misadventures of Mr. Fish. I'm Mr. Fish. Hey, happy October, everybody. So today we're doing something a little bit different. I was actually talking about my recent hobby progress with a few friends and fellow content creators, and realized that it painted quite a bit of points this year. And looking into it, I discovered that because of my niche, I might have some bragging rights. So, I know you're already asking yourself, Fish, if you've only been in the hobby for 2 years, how could you possibly have the world's biggest WAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA Just kidding, don't go anywhere. That's just cut dry, that simple. There are some insane war bosses out there that have more points than I will ever be able to collect in my life. But let's be more specific. Fish, do you have the world's largest blood axe army? Probably also not true. There are some people out there who have been kit bashing rhinos since day one. That's going to be a hard day to catch up to. But today, we answer the question, does Mr. Fish have the world's largest purple orc army? Let's find out. So if I don't, go ahead and feel free to correct me down in the comments below. But just in case I do, by popular demand, here is Mutta Spore's Boyz. So as you can see here, it's quite the collection. Y'all give me so much crap about not being able to see purple orcs. You knew I had to do that joke. So anyways, thanks for your patience. This is going to be a fun one for everybody. So when I originally put out the idea there that I was going to do an army showcase, one of the things that people love about my army is that I take the time to name every single model. With that being said, we're going to go through the list. So I apologize now for however long this video is. So let's get started, and we'll start with the HQs. All right, so first up, we have our war bosses. Now, as you can see, one of these gits is not like the other. So first up, we have Lobo, the ultimate bastard. So with Lobo here, he's from Hardcore Miniatures, and literally one of my all-time favorite comic book characters. I actually have him inked on my leg. So when I saw that there was an orc version, he became my first war boss. And that's why he has this like big epic base and everything like that. So definitely had fun with him. As you can tell, he's also the only odd duck in the whole thing because he is my only red-eyed orc. There is an exception with Boss Snickrot. Somebody else painted him, and I say those are lenses, not his eyes. But everyone else has yellow eyes. How do you think we see the purple? But yeah, so starting here. Yeah, definitely put some love into him, but you can see that's one of my earlier works. Also, as you can tell, this is literally the only model in my army that doesn't have purple on it. So he is a very special kit, but one thing that we can do to change that is, as you see, I have a little magnet there. And the reason why is because I love commandos, So I have a few extra of the bomb squigs. So here's Jebri. We'll reintroduce him again later. But with Jebri, we decided to make him special. If you follow my TikToks or my Instagram, you would have already seen this. But now Lobo has an attack squig, and that attack squig has purple. So that's my little hustle to myself there. But he is the only one of my blood axes, and then I usually run him with a custom shooter and then the relic dead shiny shooter, and then I just run this either as a big chopper or a power claw, depending. Unfortunately, the original chain broke, but then I replaced it with the real chain, so adds extra zazz. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. So next up, we got the biggest and the best when it comes to beast bosses. We got Tanya, the War Mistress. This is the Gear Guts Tanya and Dagazor model, and holy cow, this is probably one of my favorite models I've ever done. The painting on it is just absolutely well beyond what I thought I could do, and I get compliments on this every time I put it on the table. I had lots of fun going with a lot of like tropical patterning. So one of the things that I loved about the introduction of the Beast Snaggers in the 9th edition decks was that they said blood axes grow squigs that are naturally camouflaged. So with that, I decided to do stuff like this, where it's almost like a camellia squig. It can change patterns, but it's almost got like that fishy tone mixed with tropical tree frog. Since it's 3D printed from Gear Guts Mech Shop, it's got this nice little drainage hole that when I was green sculpting everything, it didn't stay. So now it's got a little butthole, which makes me laugh. Yeah, and then I just absolutely love the sculpt that they gave Tanya. It's got a little mom tattoo for a mean old mother, but I just absolutely love it. This one, in the Escalation League I was part of, this thing rode to victory many a times in my battles. So, but that's a video for another time. This is, again, just one of my absolute favorite sculpts. Also got our 2 little buddies on here, so I had some fun with them as well. Yeah, absolutely love it. And then cheeky little Necrons, little throwback to my buddy that always plays Necrons against me, and when I had a few extra scarabs, so I always like throwing them on some of my cooler models. So yeah, definitely one of my all-time favorites. Love the little lenses too. I love this thing. It's such a great model. All right, next. Next, we got Gobsnatcher, the Face Collector. I never anticipated getting a Mega Armor War Boss, but here I am with one. I definitely had to zazz it up. I had this extra head, which I felt, definitely fit the Blood Axe vibe a lot better. This was the alternative head for the Lobo sculpt from Hardcore Miniatures. And then this was also the alternative weapon. And so I just cut the nib off there and the nib off the axe. So then could make this Ooge chopper just a little bit better. And then replaced the Grot Gunner with a turret gun and the little gobbo head. So that's like that. And then because why not waste not, I wasn't going to use that because I don't actually use many big jaw plates in my army, and I don't do checks. And so I figured what better way to show how much better blood axes are than Goths than to express how the Face Collector got his name. And then one of the things you'll kind of notice if you look around is my recent Weird Boy Kit Bash isn't here because I, if you follow my stories, entered it into a contest. So I don't have it with me right now, but the same blood effect I tried on that, I put onto this so that it could have like a little glob so it looks like it's fresh. So yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite things. It was actually my first time using green stuff to kind of sculpt a fat neck. I kind of had that, kind of kingpin vibe where he was just a chunky boy, but it doesn't mean he's not tough. So yeah, and then it has like that little Master Blaster vibe with the little grot on top. So yeah, absolutely love this model. All right, and lastly, for the regular war bosses, we have the Warhammer Plus annual commemorative series model, Bazdrog Neck Chopper. Now, I don't play Age of Sigmar, so I definitely wanted to zazz this up as a war boss for 40k. So, first thing you gotta do to make it legal is on a 40 instead of the 60 that comes with him. He has a big choppa, so that's totally war boss material still. But I had to actually carve out his hand from the armor so that I could fit another gun on there, and I made a combi scorcho. So, and then from the commemorative series from year 2, I saw this little guy and I was like, oh man, he looks like a grot that got squiggly cursed. So we'll have him as a Piccolo playing attack squig. So, or maybe it's a dark gun. You don't know. Cunning but brutal. Love it. Oh, and to make him a WYSIWYG legal, he's got stick bombs. He's got his 2 pistols. Which I actually kind of really like the way it looks with the chains, because it kind of looks like he just carries trophies, but like keeps his guns handy. So it all layered really well. Surprisingly, it took well to things, and you can definitely see that I give my green skins a little bit more love now. You're gonna see some of them not so much love. Sorry, troops. Just saying. So with every wah comes a speed wah, and we introduce Moto, Throttle, and Vinny. Now, with this one, this Def Killer War Trike is probably one of my favorite models for the fact that it's a diorama, and I never really thought I would go so far as to do something like this. It was an absolute blast. I'm getting ready to start another league here in the next few months, and I plan on doing a Speedwa variant for Blood Axes. Here's Vinny on the back, dropping in that stuff. An experiment with OSL, so definitely proud of how that kind of turned out. And then the part that makes it the diorama, we painted our first Marine that you might have saw, and well, didn't turn out so well. Now, one of the things you might not have noticed is this little Easter egg over here. So I took and built a little dead orc area, but it was basically growing its own spores. So this guy was coming in to investigate on the new growth because he's like, that's no ordinary plant. So this trio had to come deal with him, because nobody stops Mutta spores. Yeah, I'm looking forward to fielding this one. I already got the 500 point list done up. I'll share that with you guys later. So next up, we have our named characters, the only actual named characters in the WAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA Beast Naga box set. Definitely felt lucky enough to get that when it released. Not saying that I waited in the queues, but I definitely did. But I had so much fun just kind of making this one simple, but kind of experimenting with it. As you'll notice with a lot of my Beast Nagas, I went way more colorful with their pelts, just because I kind of liked it. But I still, snuck in his little purple tinges because he's gonna hang with the blood axes. He's got to have the purple. So, and then there's a few of the boys that I tried face paint with, and I think he just looks amazing with it. And then one thing is always remember with this guy, I don't know if I can get a good angle on it, but there's that little footprint down there. So don't forget to have fun with that too. Love this guy. And then we have Boss Snickrot. Now, this guy I got in a trade when I was first starting some kit bashing. I was looking for extra rockets, and a guy was looking for big choppas, and I had way more big choppas than he had rockets. So he's like, hey, I have one of the metal cast Snickrots. Do you want it? And I was like, yes, please. He's like, it's already painted, but you can repaint it. And I was like, no, I think you did a phenomenal job with it. I did rebase it with my style of basing. And then the backpack wasn't painted. So I did the backpack up so that he could have his little tinge of purple too. And then, like I was saying earlier, he has red eyes because somebody else painted it more traditional. But to me, they're just, infrareds. So not red eyes, red lenses. I love this kit. After that, we have our pain boss because I got all in on Beast Snagas, so I had to pick one up. And so with this guy, we have Grutnot Rot Drug. And I just think he turned out amazing. I got a little bit more experimental with his skin, did a bit of stippling on his arms and whatnot. Tried to do a little bit of the liquid kind of tank thing. It turned out all right. Technically, this is actually the first Marine I ever painted. It wouldn't be technical, but yeah, this guy was so fun. And I enjoyed him in the league when I was running him as well, just because he actually did really well performance, basically holding objectives and keeping everyone alive turn one if I didn't get to go first in WAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA as well, so that's good. And then his little grot orderly, Satchel, aka Short Screw. Obvious name is obvious, but him is kind of little sloppier, but had a lot of fun with him. He doesn't always get ran, but he's a nice little side guy. At a certain point, everyone's got to get a weird boy. And so mine is 2 Chain, the Mouth of Mork. As you can see, I cut off the extra grot, the one that nobody likes that has the chain. And so with that, he only has 2 chains. So his name is 2 Chain. And he is the Mouth of Mork, because I usually run the jump and the crunch. And so with that, he opens his gob and it opens a portal that the boys can jump through. And then when he slams that portal shut, crunch, dead Umis. So yeah, I love it. And again, not many of them have it, but I think the face paint is phenomenal with this guy. I think it touches so well on there. The camo pattern on this one, because I really like the bright tone I use for his skin. Super fun model. He also dabbled in the league for a little bit. Not long, but long enough. And then last of the HQs, we have our big mechs, with surprise appearance by the Lost Chain Grot. So this is Scrint, who I usually run as a grot oiler, or I can also run him as a distraction grot, because everyone's like, what's that chain attached to? And I'm like, wouldn't you like to know? Distraction grot works. So had fun keeping it, use all your bits. The actual grot oiler, which is Sprocket, and then his little squig. One of the few actual red squigs I have, but he does have his little blue polka dots. That way he's lucky too. Now, back to the big mechs themselves. We'll start off with Wakanak Wild Smasher. So, when I first jumped into Big 40K, because I originally started playing Kill Team 18, which is why I have some of the Odd Duck, minis in here, but I wanted the Dread Mob from Apocalypse, and so with that comes a big mech, and so I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. So this was actually my first experiment in OSL, and I think I did fairly decent with it. I had fun, at least, with it. And so This was actually if you remember, in my first video talking about my little dread mob at 500 points, this used to be my boss. So this was my boss before my bosses. Yeah, so Wokanak Wild Smasher, one of my favorites. Next up, we got Grozgash Sun Blaster. So whenever you get a box of Mega Knobs, you always have to ask yourself, what do I build? And I just had to build this ridiculous mech, because I think the big mech in Mega Armor is probably one of the coolest mech models. And with that, it either comes with the Teleporter Blasta or the KFF, and the KFF is way too expensive for this guy. I mean, I understand why, because it's, you know, given invulns on 2-up save anyways. But yeah, I had a blast with this one. Had a lot of weathering on the wires to kind of get that goldish tinge, which, if you couldn't tell by a lot of my HQs and mechs and stuff, I like the gold wires. So yeah, this one's a fun one. Gave him the custom Mega Blast, because if you're going to shoot wild cards, you might as well shoot all the wild cards. And then the Teleporter Blasta, which depending, I consider more like mechanical WA energy, which is why it's the blue and white kind of OSL, but all of my big mechs were experiments with object source lighting. So yeah, I think it was good. I had fun with this. I've not really got to play this one as much, but I look forward to the day of the entire Dread mob coming back and being able to do all sorts of shenanigans with them. So last for the HQs, we have Zanrak Nosebiter, the Mad Mech. And this was probably my most ambitious kit bash, or at least one of the ones that made me start building my confidence up a lot. There was a challenge for Kev's, the Hobby Corner, and he does these little Discord challenges and whatnot, and one of the months was to scratch build a model. And so I went ham on it and built a big mech. I wanted it kind of inspired by the Junk Lady from the Labyrinth, so, you know, just like a whole bunch of stuff on his back, just huge backpack and whatnot, because I wanted him to have the custom force field. And I just think it turned out so good. This big spanner, you know, with the choppy bait, because sometimes a wrench don't work, you know. His body got so chunky that I'd actually replace his legs with these were actually the arms for the Killacan's Gradzukas. And so with the Gradzukas, I cut them off, turned them into some legs with some of the dread bits. Yeah, kind of give them that thing. And then, as you'll see later with my Wakas, I give them all green camo so that they can match the boys. So he has a little bit of green and purple camo, a nod to all the Walker boys. And then I used the leftover scraps from the Gradzuka to make his little toolbox that sits on the table with him. So yeah, and then the experiment again with the OSL, which, man, I think just turned out stupendous. It was like not overwhelming, but it does come across as blue lighting. So yeah, it's fun. So the most important part of any orc army is its troops, and troops wouldn't be quite the same without their dedicated transport. So let's talk about the truck. This is the first truck for the army. I do have another on the work shelf and a kit bash idea, and then something we'll talk about later. But with this, I just kind of wanted something simple. I didn't really like the gunner in this slot. I thought it looks kind of odd. I cut the wrecking ball off of it, but I kept like the round shape because in case I wanted to put somebody in there later, I could. And so with that, we put a big shooter on the side, so that way the driver can just have his way with it. Yes, the camo does go to the underside as well. And because he doesn't have a base, he's actually the only baseless model that actually has a name written on it. I have 2 other baseless models, and I have not yet decided how I want the name on them. And I don't technically have them named, so I'm a little bit of ashamed of that, but at least we got that out of the way now instead of way later when we showcase everything and you're disappointed in me. So sorry for that now. But yeah, so this is the Shadow. Just kind of had fun with it because it was one of the first vehicles that I had to do a full purple paint job on. I wasn't quite sure how it would turn out, so yeah, I really like it. And you know, the Shadow is just a good one based on the superhero, obviously, the Shadow. It's what looks in all the Umis, the Shadow knows. Is that the Phantom? We'll talk about that later. So a cornerstone to every orc army is its Boyz. And I hear you asking yourself already, Fish, if you're comparing your army to some of the largest armies out there, how do you only have 10 Boyz? Well, I have more than 10 Boyz. And I have some on the workbench. We'll get back to those in a little bit. These Boyz, I didn't really need them for a long time. When I got into big 40k, I got the Snaggas. And my first Boyz that I had were actually just these 4 for kill team. Because with the mixture of commandos, which is why I fell in love with blood axes in the first place, these 4, Crack Swinger, Scruffhood, Cragnick, Street Cleaver, Wargnug, Crook Crusher, and Gorbanuk Clawbreaker. Those 4 were part of my kill team, and so they were a lot of the basis of my army. Now, these guys also have a special honor of being some of the few that have survived my initial stripping. So when I first did my orc army, they had red eyes. But my primer bubbled, something that unfortunately got noticed when I submitted a grot for a showcase for 6+ Stevo. So I felt a little bit bad and stripped my just few minis, because I only had a kill team's worth of minis anyways at that point. But got a nice clean prime on them and basically redefined my army. So because I decided to use the red on all of my axes, to make them blood axes, I decided to go with yellow eyes, and my excuse then became their yellow eyes allowed them to see purple, and that's how they can be a purple wall. So it started with them, and then, like you guys saw, we added the rest of these kits when we got our bases from Immersive Terrain. And then because a lot of these are going to be more of the cheesier names, maybe more auto-generated, messed around with using different algorithms and programs to come up with names, because trust me, as smart as I wish I was, I'm definitely not smart enough to come up with this many original names all by myself, let's be honest. So last on the menu, we have Gruktug, Grave Cleaver. So that's also what I want to point out, because although everyone has unique names, there are some that are similar. So, but everybody has a unique name. Skakara, Vabik, Edgasha. That's clever. Imidar Gutspasha. Runzaz Bonecracker. And Wagzam Glumripper. So, for now, those are my only painted Boyz. A good chunk of my horsepower in my army was done with my Beast Snaggle Boyz. I absolutely love the Beast Snagga Boys, or some people call them the Prime Morcus, uh, because they're definitely the Primaris of orcs, or even like Ard Boys for the old Hammer fans that want to refer to them as something else. Uh, Man, I love them. I was fortunate enough with the Snagga release to get 2 boxes of the starter set. And so I've had these 40 boys. They were sitting on my shelf forever. And then finally, uh, my buddy who I got to play with and stuff like that, we were finally able to kind of get together again. And so I started painting them all up. And I actually used it as an excuse to kind of experiment with a few different things, especially with like the different colors on the squig hides and different pelts that they're wearing, the flesh tones with what the differences with washes would do versus trying to do glazes versus kind of base coats. And we just experimented a lot. And then they're broken up into 4 units of 10 with a thump gun. Technically can mix and match them, but I almost always run them that way just because it helps you avoid the blast effects by keeping them under, a 10 and under. And then I like running the thump gun with them because it's some of the best 5 points you can spend, because with WAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA it gives you the assault weapon. So I do like them. That being said, this part is going to be a bit of a struggle bus as I now name 40 boys. So with the first squad, we got Korzog, Cogsnag. Some of these are not as original as others. Goga Gaza. Grag Hak Mogbad. And then also real quick, just to kind of make them feel a little unique, I did do some head swaps, mostly on the thump gun and on the knobs. There's one knob that has his normal head, but all the thump guns got their own ones. So we got Rock Talk Ed Guzzler. Grug Krug Snark. The knob in this squad, Garbag Haraka. Star Shark Grugger. Gitz Sunblitzer. Gitzbog Sunshock. So, if you can tell, the troops are definitely where the name generator kicked in a little bit. Orc Drug Kaga. But they are all individual names. Second squad, Dakazad Godclaw. And he's the only one with the original head. Then we have Brag Jaw Cleaver. Bokamungus. Rock Goal World Frag. Very fitting for a thump gun. Boric Cogclaw. Greg Mott Gorgrud. Chedra Grutka. Grutka. Zoglong Cogfang. You're a cheeky Zogga, aren't you? Then we have Cogclaw Rucker. And Grub Blitzcracker. Next we'll have Bulldrug Bone Tusk. Ooh. Thraxnick Ertalk. Hagrid Bone Wrecker. Sad. Gazcar Ungruel. Snagrod Gruck. Judah Mer Edlug. Skagbed Blitz Ripper. Ungab Goglonic. Warped base. So that one's a little harder. Magback Gutshock. And Gogbag Godblitzer. And also something too, you can tell with all of them, I gave them all 10 models unique pelt colors, so that way you can mix and match them no problem. You just grab one of each and boom, you got yourself a squad. Alright, and then the final squad of these Snaggle Boys, we have Nargle, Zognob, Nargrub Zogsnick, Wartslag Skumog. A lot of these are named off of some of the old school like Rogue Trader style ones too, where you roll dice and get them too. So, Bad Fug Rockgol, Bad Gog Durteef, Gutzord Duckadreg, Nazgor Gobgor, Rotshack Grubgog, Megob Grimgrot. He's got a plate on his face. Megob. And then one of the few that are actually named by a friend, Let's Make It Orky. When I asked anybody if they had any name suggestions, she said name one of them Kez. So we have come on Kez, because it was the first thump gun I painted and the first squad of beast snaggas I added to my 500-point army when I was first getting going in Big 40K. So this one has been through the long haul with me. Come on, kids. Now for the best part of every orc army, it's grots, and in this case, the most important being the namesake for my WAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA the actual leader of all of my sneaky gits. So Mutta Spore was the last surviving grot of a group of storm boys, and basically tended to all of the spores to regrow the WAAAAA. And so it all started with him. So he is the Mutta Spore, because Umis always cry for the Muttas, so Muttas must be in charge. And I actually never thought I was going to get more grots when I first started into 40k, because with Kill Team 18, I only needed the one as a leader. So, and then I even gave him his own slugga, so he's, you know, a little bit better. And so he's actually from the Storm Boys kit, and then he was converted up when I first started. My buddy thought, he's like, man, having a little grot as a leader, like that's not very fluffy, like it's a hard target. Like, I was like, fine, I'll zazz him up. He actually was originally on a 32mm base, but when I jumped up to big 40k, I put him on his proper 25, because I was like, at 32, I was like, good luck if you can kill him. It actually made it his mission to kill this guy, because he survived so many battles. He survived so long, he even grew his own big teeth. So, yeah. And then all of my grots kind of have those bloody teeth, because they are horrible gits. when I first started getting into Kill Team and whatnot, the kiddo, now a teen, was wanting to play as well. And she's like, Dad, is there goblins? And I was like, yeah, they're called Grots or Gretchen, but yeah, there's goblins. She's like, can I play those? And then we got it, and she's like, can we make them zombies? And I was like, I mean, kind of. We can make them bloody, I guess. And then I was like, but there's real zombies. And so then the only non-orcs I've ever got were Death Guard. So we have some Boxwalkers as well. But that's why they all kind of have like the little bloody teeth, is because the kiddo wanted her goblins to have bloody teeth. So, and then you can tell this is the first set that I eventually ended up picking up for her. And then I obviously need to pick up more. And then finally, got some Grot proxies with Gunner Dogosaurs from Geargut's Mech Shop. Technically, not all these guys are purple gits either, but they're squigs, and they are all different animal prints, which I feel is the same thing as purple camo for Blood Axis, because it's in the fluff. Read your decks. All right. But yeah, and so we have all those, and then we have some more Grots on the workbench as well on the way. But yeah, I absolutely love these guys. They've done so many ridiculous things for me in the time that I've played, from holding objectives to wrapping a tank. They get pretty cheeky pretty fast. So let's get into their names. All right, we already covered Mutta Spore. So we have One Foe, Jib, Changalang Changalang, Film, Bunglin, Ucko, which I also love because one time my buddy was like, does that have a gun? Because he was trying to get me for WYSIWYG, and I'm like, haha, yes it does. Blarf, Xerxes, and Spork for the first squad. Next 10, Agabog, Slurry, Scrim, Choof Toof, Grink, Splack, Knurl, another fan named Ferd, Splish, Glom. And then our Squiggies, we wanted to have more kind of doggo names for them. So we got Mud Scoffer, Gravel Jaws, Spew Tongue, Knuckle Sniffer, Gangle Sponge. For those that have ever played Monster Rancher, this one totally gives me Suezo vibes. Marshmouth, Thud Guzzler, Glut Chunks. I really like this one as well. The blue and black with an orange belly. Grub Cracker. And Lump Muncher. Now, with these ones, something else that I did was that with their color patterns, I actually kind of isolated them into pairs. So we have our red and blue, we have our purple and dark green, our light green and pink, our orange and blue, and our purple and yellow. So, and then actually, this is also one of the few that don't actually have a yellow eye, but that's because I figured the yellow would be a little bit too much there. But it does have a red and blue eye, which if you looked at my Millboard Darkfang, is also a red-blue eye. So what? Maybe it's a squig eye. Yeah, these guys were a lot of fun. Definitely love Gear Guts Mech Shop stuff. Gotta check them out. These ones are fun ones. Next up, we're going to have all of our elite options, and for the most part, this is where a lot of the army comes together. My love of Blood Axes started with Commandos, so when we got the new Commandos kits, I was super excited. With the Commandos, it started with the Kill Team, just because I was hoping that with the new Kill Team set that I would continue on playing with it, and so I did all of the specialist units. Then I kind of lost touch with the Kill Team community a little bit as I was jumping into bigger and bigger 40k, and so that's why I had to build regular Slugga Choppa ones, because they're much better in big 40k. So let's see who we have here for everybody. For the specialists, we have the Ed Gobbo, because everyone knows the Grot's leader and everything. So this was fun. I like this one. But I definitely got a little bit more experimental as I went through. Now, I was saying that we do have different aesthetics for squigs and blood axes. So this is Bounda. Let me know in the comments if you get the reference. And then we have all of our specialists. So we do have our first brothers. We have Grim Grin Long Daka and Grim Grim the Shiv. And so these two are obviously my sniper and my melee specialists. We have Gragnet Spleen Ripper, just a regular commando. Our Breacher Commando, Snick Rat Blacktooth. I really like the Breachers. I actually have an extra one being kit bashed because I'm debating on running an Oops All Commandos list. So I definitely need 15 in each squad instead of the 10 like I have here, but that's future fish problems. We have our knob, Squig Face Ubi Chewer. And I like this guy. I actually attempted to put a little bit of effort into the screen there. And then I just think that face is so classic. These were such a great sculpt, and I love the little cheeky movie they made introducing them with the Death Corbett Krieg, which is some of the only Umis that I own. Yeah, I love that model. Then we have our custom shooter, which is Erlak Draka. As you can tell, also, this is when I started to use a lot more golden bullets, because everyone knows the golden gun's the best. Our Rocket Boy, Frag Bag Grug. Now, something with this is he is one of the only Rocket Boys like this, and I'll explain later about that, but he was special because he was a commando specialist. So, like I said, at one point, I wasn't even sure if I was going to use these in big 40k because it was, Kill Team. We got Tuska Steel Boots, our Burner Boy. We got Krasnag Skull Crusher. Just a regular Slugga Choppa Commando. And then Foxknot Ripblade, our communications org. You ask yourself, blue battery? It's because he's listening for the wall. Yeah, this is a fun little cheeky model. Almost completely useless in big 40k, but in Kill Team, he is so fun. And then when I run them in big 40k too, if you notice that there's only a couple in here that have masks on. So I did a lot of them in normal face, but then with the other squad, I did them all in masks, with the exception of the ones that originally were masked in the other set. So I gave them faces so I could swap them in and out and kind of have sets there. So we got Star Guzzler Zana, and doesn't have quite the same cool screen, but we did take time to do a lens. So I was pretty proud of that. And then these guys are just crazy with the masks like that. Then we got Bargok, Rackbag. These guys are also a little bit more grim dark. I tend to refer to my style as grim bright because of the fun colors I use. But, you know, sometimes you got to kind of go more aesthetic, even if it is, you know, meme fluff. Skega Necklaw. Bararuckrob. Bogit's Damon Waka. Gang of Blitzsplinter. Bad Gets Garaga. Garwaza Head Frag. That's why he's got a plate. Grogbach Thog. And Arsenic Shagrock. One of my favorites too, because I like just the way the arms are positioned on it, just holding the pistol. I mean, that's so much fun. But then for the distraction guard on this one, I wanted it to be different because I didn't really like the scuba mask, but I was like, you know what? It's just a scuba mask. If I paint it like a scuba mask, it's just a scuba mask. So we have Gorgmont Nose, and I think he turned out amazing. This is arguably one of the best grots I've ever done. I think the tones in his face, the like little details on the ropes and stuff, and just like the idea of just adding that on the back just makes it fun. I love it. And then, like I said, Jebri just took a little magnet and put it into his foot, and then took a magnet and drilled into the center of this, just the hair, so that way, you know, pop that little center tab, and then we can just have our little attack squig, and then it's just a matter of boop, pop right there. Kind of give him a little slot there so his foot, you know, gets lost in it and you don't really notice. But I do love the color palette I chose on this. Once again, Jebri, if you know the reference, let me know down in the comments. There's a lot of different things in my army like that, so let me know. Jebri. So one of the best clears for troops is always going to be Burner Boys. And I originally got these ones for Kill Team because my buddy was just wrecking me at one point with Necron's reanimation protocols. So these doing 1 damage at a time helped me get past some of those 6-up rolls. But then that's what also happened to the other boys of why I only had 4, because then I turned the other half into Ludas, because you didn't actually need Spanas in Kill Team 18 with your squads. Now, thankfully, when 9th edition came out and Spanas became mandatory, I had me a KMB one. But Ludas work better with big shootas, and every time I got a box, if I was going to do it, I was going to need a lot of big shoota Spanas. So when I did my second squad of Burner Boys, I had to make a decision on how I was going to mech it up with some Spanas. And so with that, Gigabit Rockfrag got retired as a Spana and actually upgraded to a mech with the enhanced Custom Mega Blasta. Or custom, I think it's a Custom Mega Pistol. I don't know. It's basically the Slugga or Custom Mega Slugga or whatever the mech actually has. I just play this as the enhanced version of it. And fun fact, that KMB hand is how I made the flamethrower Combi Scorcha for the War Boss. So little bit of orky hack in there. So yeah, so this one got retired and became a mech. And instead, I got these three: Zitz, Rash, and Pimple. These are three of the Gear Guts mech shops mechs, and I definitely feel like those look like custom Mega Blasters, just a little bit better. And then these were actually my first official testing of alternative skin tones in my Ork army. And if the names didn't give it away, the skin tones definitely do for who these are based off of. So I had a lot of fun experimenting with them. Now, if you notice, there are three there. There are only two squads of Burner Boys. I do have one more squad on the workbench, so we'll talk about them later. And for names, we have Ed Boiler Glut, Brag Mort Zoggle, Bogabog Grotza, Garfang Jawfist, Ugtals Crook Crown, get it? Because the head's on sideways. Alright. Agaz Bone Scorcher, Marzad Mad Trasher, and Gogsnark Death Boiler. I like him a lot. So since we were just talking about mechs, let's talk about the characters in the elite slots. So first, just a regular mech here with his custom Mega Slugga. I finally remembered. And I modeled him with a kill saw, but I could use it as a chop up. But this little one that came with the Dreadwall for Apocalypse. So would I have this guy normally? Probably not. But it's basically free 95 in the box. So you just have Gloom Boiler, one of the few orcs that's only got a single name, because that's all he needs. One of the unsung mascots of the channel, we have Erdigate Gulp Splitter. Now, Erdigate is my pain boy that I actually built for one of the challenges for the 40k orc community, and he's just kind of been a mascot since.
Oi, if you like my mate Mr. Fish's content, give him a like. And if you don't want to miss future content, go ahead and subscribe. Now hurry up, you git. Oh, and thank you very much.
His big old Erdy syringe and his power claw. He's got his little medicine there. It just tries it all. You know, it's either gonna crump you or it's gonna cure you. So yeah, I love this guy. Probably one of my favorite cheeky models, just because it's not the best, but it definitely conveys the story that I wanted to. And then the last of my character kit bashes, the Knob with WAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA cool model. So, you know, who knows? Maybe one of these Orkmasses, the Red Gobbo, will bless me with a real one. But I like this one. And here's that little other half of the club I was talking about on that War Boss. So, and then we just custom kit bashed it from there to have a big old wall banner. It's one of the few face plates that I actually used. And then give him a custom shooter with one of the little Storm Boys rockets on it, so that you know that it's custom. And then this is Smack Ruggis Wall Cleaver. He's fun. I usually will run him either with some Mega Knobs, sometimes as a truck boy, so that I can do him in like a truck with Ludas. So he's a fun little model. I'm glad that I did bash him out, but I wouldn't be opposed to having a real one in the army either. Speaking of knobs, next up is knobs. I don't play with my knobs quite so often. I mean, other than, you know, when you have your Boyz, you have your mandatory knob that you have to play with. But you know, I like their profile, but just I don't know. The whole knob aesthetic is not something that I use a lot in a slot category. So with a lot of these, they were knobs that I played with during Kill Team. So a lot of them were also kind of bashes as well. Because I mean, if you're not bashing your knob, like what are you doing with yourself? And so we have, first of all, we have Urzog Squig Biter. Now, a few of them, not many, but a few of the army will have little things like this on the back. Because he was a demolition specialist for a Kill Team. And that's why he also has his big chop on the back, because in Kill Team 18, you could use a combi weapon and a big chopper. I don't know, you might have been able to do that in 8th edition as well, because it's based off 8th edition. So bring that back. That would be the... You know me, GW? Bring that back. Now, also, I didn't actually have a knobs kit, so with that, I had to convert. So I did use, it's a Necron weapon, but you know, just adding it together like that, I mean, it does kind of look like a combi Scorcher. So I definitely love the way this turned out. And then we have, oh, I didn't even give you his name, Godbreaker Ed Stomper. And then because points were such a big deal in that version of Kill Team, you know, we had to have the cheap knob. So we have Stag Brog Stormcrumper, who was a veteran, and he had his little power stabber. One day I might actually change this out for another Power Claw, just because, but I don't know, I also like the Power Stab because that means that if I want to run a Power Stab and a Poise list, I can. Probably never would, but I could. And it's got history. He's a veteran. We got 2 Power Claw knobs. And so this is Back Grabber Grog, because he sneaks up on you and he grabs you by the back. And then we have Gitzog Skull Crusher, which kind of has a very Shakespearean vibe. To crump 'em or not to crump 'em is never a question. We have Rex Gargrugger. Once we actually got knobs, we had the Combi Scorcher. And if you notice, this guy's a little bit different. It's because he is from the Age of Sigmar, I believe, Warcry, Iron Skull's boys. So that's actually his axe in there that I turned into his banner pole. And that's why he's kind of wearing more chainmail-y looking armor, but, you know, still did it in my style. And then, last but not least, you there, my little ammo runt. Oh, almost missed Nazbok Face Crumper. This one was the Commando version of a knob I made for my daughter's army. So she wanted a little squeaky as a Power Claw, because the Commando had to have a Power Claw initially. So, yeah. My first squiggies were little pink squiggies with green hair. So, speaking of squiggies, let's talk about mega knobs. So, I had already talked about earlier when I got my first mega knobs kit, how I made the big mech in power armor, and then I made 2 Killsaw boys. So, that was Garglurk Black Claw and Grobzok Kolbog. And so these 2, which I get sometimes a little bit of flack because they don't have jaw plates, but that's because I wanted them to go along with my Kit Bash Mega Knobs. Now, these didn't always start life as Mega Knobs. As some of you longtime followers on the channel know, I was originally bashing these out to be flash kits for Kill Team. But, like I said earlier, Kill Team 18 phased out. I wasn't ever going to run freebooters, and you need a squad of 5 flash kits. So I was like, well, if I'm going to build 5 of something anyways, might as well make them Mega Knobs. So I used the Power Claws, and we gave them some big old flashy guns. And so these are actually the Iron Skull boys, the other part of it. So, this one was Iron Skull himself, but now he's Rogbaz Iron Wrecker. And so he has this little targeting squig, which was actually a little toy that broke that my daughter gave me to convert. So yeah, this was one of my first real big conversions that I did, and definitely love the big shooters that come with them. Gotta make them big and custom, like snaz guns, but they're def guns, or custom shooters in this case. And then something you might have noticed on a lot of these is the skull bases that I use on a lot of things. So a lot of people did use them just for decorations normally, but some of these guys did go unpainted when I was in a Kill Team League, and so it became a thing of just adding skulls for experience points. So the models were originally going to try and get stuff, but then, like I said, it changed their whole aesthetic to be Mega Knobs, and it actually led to me bashing out some more. We'll talk about those later. Now, I told you earlier I didn't have any plans of having more boys in the army, so when rockets came up, I decided to just bash them all out into tank busters. But that all started with these two. That's Zagtog and Razgate Grot Kicker. Now, the Grot Kickers were part of my kill team. Well, more specifically, they were part of my daughter's kill team. She wanted an all-goblin army originally, and then, like I said, didn't really care so much. Early teenage angst, and so Dad ended up playing them in a Kill Team league at one point for Kill Team 18, and ended up getting a lucky shot in my very first match. As I was told, like, running Rocket Boys is a waste of time. And on Overwatch, rolled a 6, and then rolled a 6 to wound on a Tyrannid Warrior, and killed a Tyrannid Warrior first turn, first action on an Overwatch, and it was the most magical thing in the history of things. And from that point on, all rockets in my army are blue. So it all started with these two, and then give them the Grot head. So I know you're asking, why are they Grot Kicker? Well, they're not kicking grots, they're thinking like grots. So just like Spore grew tusks, these grots grew big enough to carry their own rockets, and now they have a whole pack. So with that, now if you notice, I don't have any pistols in there, but we got our knobs so that we can have our 2 squads of 5 if we want, as well as we have our tank hammers. So we'll start with them. We got trying to get Long Strider and Fat Gob Ubi Blaster. And so these two are probably some of my favorite bashes. They got that emergency button just to make sure they get dealt with. So, and then for the rest of the tank busters, we have Osbola Skull Snag. See, we got a skull snag. All right, Golgrag Big Frag. I think that's obvious. All right, go Zodkrok Brog Snag. Lookaron Oddfist. Vratu Big Spitter. And Shiruk Gutfrag. So, yeah, I definitely love these. Tank busters are some of my favorite units in the game, and then having them all be grots with lucky rockets, like, they have definitely held their weight in teeth on the table. we are on to the fast attacks, and even if they aren't the largest portion of my army yet, most of them are some of my favorite stories. So with that, a lot of this all began with this squad here. So these Storm Boys were actually purchased with me thinking I could use them in Kill Team and would be awesome, only to find out Storm Boys were not. So I initially kibashed these guys into commandos, which is why only a couple of them actually have their kind of jumping fight standy Storm Boy vibe, because some of them I had to try and chop down to make them look like they were walking commandos. So yeah, it's pretty wild. And then when we got the better commando sculpts, I still had all the rocket bits, so I popped off the little makeshift backpacks I made and gave them all the rockets back. So this whole wall exists because of the many lives that this little group has lived. And then to amplify the Storm Boys, I got these copter grots from Geargut's mech shop as well, and that lets me pull them up to a squad of 15. There are also some of the few grots in my army that have 2 names because I want to identify them as Storm Boys, and all of my Orky Boys have multiple names. So we got Gagbagus Bloodgutter. He was one of my commando boss knobs for a while. That big old power claw. We got Tracking the Stompy. Just loved his big old stick bomb, just like he was lobbing it. The only one that always had his rocket because he was my scout. That's Zogadagafist. He was the first model in my army to not have a blood axe. So, and he's got his little buddy that's ready with him the whole time. Then we got Krogskull Gate Stomper. So a flyback look. And then we got Nas Get the Face Grinder. And I always loved him with his massive amount of stick bombs, just kind of jumping in. Oh. And then, like I said, we got our Grot Storm Boys. So when I do run these guys, I can run them in squads of 5 if I want to, because there are 5 that have melee weapons, 5 that have ranged weapons, so you can kind of isolate them that way. But if I do run them in a squad of 10, and this is what I usually run as my knob, I had a little bit of paint drip on his head when I was doing things, and it just looked so good on him, like he was just a nut job with his chain sword, and I just loved it, so I kept it. And then because none of them were flying, I decided to have these guys all kind of stand on their base, like they kind of jump up and spring like frogs almost, and then the propellers just launch them into them. So yeah, so with these guys we have Ezrock Iron Doom, Smog Sknag, Laws Foul Steel, Zartuk Bone Slayer, Tanks Giant Belch, Ozteg Mad Hacker, Scab Dead Finder, Zekib Git Basher, Gigglefoot Dogmaw, and Sick Eye Splev. Now, for some models I wasn't actually ever anticipating having in the army, but these 3 were actually gifted by a good friend who is a commission painter as well. And on their way out of town, they were like, hey, I have gifts for all my friends. And that is when I found out that these kind of silly side questions were in fact interrogating me on what my army's vibe was, so that they could make me this gift. So with that, we have Splork, Gorhag, and Zorkfeld Jr. the first 3 deaf coptas in the WAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA are a Thousand Suns player. So these orcs have found their way from the warp to Mutta Spore's boys, and are going to be a great part of the speedwalk portion of this army. And so, and it actually encouraged me to pick up some extras. So I do have another trio on the workbench, but they also got to have the new bases too, because I like the way these ovals look. So, and they did a great job emulating my style on bases, as well as kind of also zazzing it up with their own flair as well. Those flight stands are actually just chopped up sprue, so it turned out awesome, and I love the bluish hue to it. It actually inspired some more models on my workbench as well, but my favorite part is that they also included the lucky blue rockets, so super awesome. Blessings from Zinj. Now for my favorite model in the entire army. I am a sucker for the knob on Smasher Squig. I think they're possibly some of the best models, point stat wise, fun to build, fun to customize, absolute essential. With Blood Axe shenanigans, the ability to fall back and charge over and over again is insane. For a good chunk of the time in my league list, I ran the duo, because I couldn't run 3 until I got up to a battalion. But man, I think 14 mortal wounds was the most I did on charges in a single game. In the course of like 2 turns, because they could also use the unstoppable momentum stratagem to charge again if they destroy the unit that they charged, which is really bad for HQs that are right next to each other. But my first one was Ooze Bad, Warp Bad. And so this was my first attempt at a Camellia Squig, but everyone saw the Tiger Squig, and instantly the people started calling him Jork Exotork or Jork Exorkork. Just basically telling me I should get a cowboy hat for him. But yeah, and then these ones were some of the ones that I just had a really fun time with the bases on as well, because these were the first kind of bigger bases that I had done for the Snagas, and so I absolutely love them. And then after I did that one, I decided to up my game and decided not to go as much like that tiger thing and went more full-on leopard cheetah kind of vibe. He was actually the first model I put face paint on, Def Gob Scab Rot. And so I wanted him to feel unique, especially since they were both characters. I could run them as like one with Brutal but Cunning, and then the other with like I've Got a Plan, lads, or something shenanigan-y like that. So and then I needed a third, and that is when some kit bashing came in. So with Doug, Jawlug, we tested out, did some like horns, which I think turned out really awesome. And then like this was the other gun option for the Lobo miniature. So I just kind of made it into this guy's shoot a slugga. Yeah, and I just think the trio together looks so good. And I can kind of see where my skills improved in such a way that, it's similar but noticeably different. And I like that in each one of them I kind of have something that they're jumping over, whether it be barbed wire or like a tree stump or some little scarabs sneaking through on them. So I love these guys, hands down, best thing ever. And I know what you're saying, but fish, where are the Squigog boys? They're on the workbench. I loved painting these so much that I have never been able to finish the Squigog Boys paint jobs. But you know what? Maybe at the end of this video, I'll do all my work in progress stuff as well, because I'm a madman and this video isn't long enough as it is. In the home stretch, we have our heavies, and so we gotta start off with Ludas. Now, I only have one squad of looters so far. I do have two on the workbench, but they were part of my kill team originally, so I didn't need to have a spanner initially, but then I eventually had to kit bash myself a big shooter boy, because looters and big shooters just go so good together with all that daka 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 daka. So with that though, I do love Ludas just because you can plop them down on the table somewhere and they're basically like a little tank. Now, am I going to be more excited when I have 15 of them in a battle wagon? Maybe. But that's going to be speed wah problems for the fish. So right now, I only got the one done up, but plenty more to come with them. So for the spanner, we have Bugger Grub Tooth, which I love the little head from him. I'm pretty sure it's one of the alternative heads for the Smash the Squig. So love it. And then for the Ludas themselves, we have Snagbuck Skull Clumper, Jarka Dome Splitter, Gizgag Gut Cleaver. I'm glad I pronounced that one. And then Mugger Muzzle Cracker. So, yeah, Ludas. One of the only unnamed models in my army because it is a toy kit bash. It is nicknamed the Death Roller because it's got the death faceplate, and since it's a toy, it rolls the Death Roller. But it doesn't officially have its name written on it anywhere. So with this one, this was originally going to be a truck. If you follow my TikTok, you have seen the work in progress on this, but it has the same footprint with the wheels as a truck does. Me wanting to have a truck that was big enough that I could put my Mega Knob truck boys in it, I found this flatbed and I was like, perfect, let's put them together and make it look orky, and you know, all the little greebly things and stuff like that. The other portion of the Gradzukas and stuff, Gradzuka, the other pieces from those legs earlier, are also exhausts here. These are some shoulder pads. The Grot from the War Boss, some knockoff Lego sandbags. But I digress. Back to what I was initially saying. It was supposed to be a truck. Well, got permission, ran it in the league as a truck, because it wasn't like an official sanctioned event or anything like that, so no big deal. Until I went up against another orc player who had a battle wagon with Death Rolla, and we had the same profile. So yeah, so now it's a battle wagon instead of a truck, and I absolutely love it. Took some inspiration from some of the other crazy kit bashes I did in my Gasland days. Did blue windows because I always love blue windows on a vehicle like this. Thanks for that. Immersive terrain back when they were in counter wargaming. That's where a lot of my vehicle ideas came from initially when I was getting into Gaslands. So yeah, this was actually a too big a scale for Gaslands car that I had to do something with. And just so you know, yes, I did camouflage the bottom as well, even if I did dust it up. So this was a super fun one. Did lots of little dags because people wanted dags on it when I was talking about ways to make it look like, you know, more orky. Love the kind of barbed wire there, and the little shoulder plates that I turned into hubcaps just to keep it real simple. You know, mind you, some people are like, well, you need to add treads to it and stuff like that, but I don't know. I like the rolly aspect of it. It makes it fun. Who knows? Maybe, hey, if enough people are interested, who knows? You made it this far in the video, we might do a giveaway at some point. Just saying. And since we're talking transports, we might as well talk about the other heavy transport in the army here. Now, technically, Gratzbraga
Zon World Claw. He's also an HQ, but he tends to always ride with Boca Spleen Rucka and the Revengeancers. Another reference. Let me know in the comments if you get it. But since he always tends to run with them, I didn't really consider him separate. He's part of the kill rig. And yes, his name is Gratz Braka, and that does say Boca Spleek Rucka, but that's because the driver is Golka Spleek Rucka. So, absolutely love the kill rig. This one, first of all, whenever you get a kill rig, put the word boy on the base because it does fit. Okay, so you can definitely keep it modular. These guys just kind of peg in, so that way you can have your hunter rig if you really want to, but that kill rig is just so good. This thing did so much work for me in the league, just because that ability to do the war cannon and just the psychic abilities. Now these technically are like bullet shells, but I did do them blue because since it's a heavy cannon, I figured they'd be more like little grenades. So that's why I did them blue like my rockets. And I could definitely come back in here and do more details, but I did get third place at a local paint competition with it for the Wizards and War Machines competition for the Warhammer store. So I was still pretty proud of myself for that. Yeah, we can come back at some point and do more details on it. Maybe zazz up my camo a little bit more. Do some like different things on the pelt here to add some more depth and definition, kind of like I did with the skull. Because I definitely did with this, and a lot of this actually was done with airbrush. You can definitely see where the hand brushing came in, but definitely a lot of it was done there. And then I just kind of kept it simple on the base. I love this model. It is hard for me to not run Snaggas in most of my lists, mostly just because this guy is such a beast. Yes, I definitely do have a second kill rig on the workbench. So if commandos are what made me fall in love with blood axes, walkers are what made me fall in love with big 40k. So let's take a look at the last of the heavies. Now, the Killicans are the only squad in my army that I actually took the time to magnetize, and the only reason why is because when I first got them, I knew I didn't have enough rocket arms, and let's see if I can get this to focus on this real quick for you. So they have this little socket joint that is exactly the size of a magnet, and so I put it on both sides, so that way they could all be ambidextrous, depending on what weapon loadouts I wanted. So I do have actually the Berna and big shooter guns done up as well. So like you can actually see here where I took big shooter arms and turned them into to rocket arms and stuff like that, and took like the Death Drag rockets and stuff. So and then also with my Wakos, I did a little bit different. I kind of went cheesy old school leet speak for my names on them. So with these we have F24NK, 21CH, 42D, 4X1, 2053, D122Y, 5145H, and Duff. So that is Duff / Dizzy, Frank, Richard, and Axel Rose, aka Grots and Rockets. Now, if you follow along on the channel, you've met this trio of Def Dreads before. Beatbox, Walk Steady, and Don't Shoot. Beatbox was my very first big 40k model. A friend hooked me up, was like, I'm never going to run this many Def Dreads, because he had bought a couple of the patrol boxes before they were patrol boxes. And so when I built the second one,
I just mirrored it, used basically the exact opposite bits for everything, and so that's why they're beatbox and walk steady. If you get the reference, leave a comment down below. And then Don't Shoot, who's covering his eyes, but he's also covering from other Daka. He's an all melee, and this trio has been through a lot with me. Absolutely love these guys. I have to force myself not to use Def Dreads all the time because they're just amazing at their cost. And then that leads me to this. Crash Override. So this is a 4 custom Mega Blaster Def Dread. I had so much fun bashing out this model. When I got the Kildaka bandwagon, I didn't think I would ever use a second shock attack gun. So I was like, well, it kind of reminds me of a custom Mega Blaster. And then there's 1, 2, 3. So if I just replace his arm with a 4th custom Mega Blaster, there we go. And then I used some dollar store Final Faction legs from one of their turret guns with some bits from like model cars and stuff like that. A broken chain wrecking ball from a truck kit, some shoulder pads and such, and built up this kind of frame. So it kind of, the idea was it wanted some vibes like a Doomstalker. And I'm actually excited because one of my other orc buddies has an extra dread pole. So I can make it look more like a Def Dread by adding that little dread banner to it as well. Because it is definitely chunky, but it's not super chunky. But I like that because it's also supposed to be sleek and shooty, you know? Because dreads are just orcs that climbed into cans, kind of like dreadnoughts for things, except for they're still alive. And so, yeah, and mechs eventually go crazy and become bigger and bigger walkers and stuff. So I figured it'd be kind of fun to start this way with this. And then, like I was saying before with the camo, so if you notice on all my walkers, I have a green camo on all the body bits and purple camo on all the armor bits, just like my mech that I kit bashed earlier. So, and that was actually a throwback to my Def Dreads, because that first one that I showed you earlier that I painted, I always kind of had that orky vibe, you know, because like that's the point, is that they're kind of an orc effigy. And so, yeah, and then this is using another one of those bigger skull for the skull throne bases I got from Immersive Terrain, and then added in some extra little bits for it. So had this extra little zombie, so I decided to try and, you know, add some horror effect to it, because it's awesome. I had to include like the little Necron scarab in there, so that way, you know, you get that more Doomstalker vibe. The little Snotling's head and the tube all kind of chained up with some more OSL effects, and I definitely feel like it comes across pretty well in this model as well. I definitely did it a lot more bravely, just kind of putting it everywhere I needed to kind of have that reflection, and I think it turned out stupendous. So I was pretty proud of myself for it. It's just got a little bit of everything on it. So yeah, Crash Override. Again, cheeky reference. Let me know if you get it. And I guess since we're done with heavies and we're talking about walkers, let's talk about the biggest boy. Now, he doesn't officially have a name written anywhere on him, but I constantly refer to him as the biggest boy. And this was insane. This let me know where my skill set was. This is probably the most ambitious camo print I've done on any models that I've done before. As you can see, I kind of left off a lot of the extra little greeblies. Made a really good deal with the local war boss, so well worth it. But yeah, I just had a blast with this one. You know, kind of went a little bit above and beyond, you know, with the extra blood all over where you can actually see little speckles of it, you know, up in the camo and stuff. And tried a little bit of OSL with the lights, but nothing too drastic. Blue rockets, and the first time doing something that wasn't just blue on my rockets. But the craziest part about this actually was my first attempt at some like serious like Louis Sugden style masterclass horns, and I feel like that part of the model gets lost in translation with all the other craziness going on with it. So I have to say that I was pretty chuffed to bits with that. So yeah, had to show the biggest boy. Next doubles tournament that I go to, he's actually going to make an appearance by popular demand. I had some good conversations with some people about whether or not it would be fun to bring to an event, and so many people were like, there are so few orc players in our community, most of us will never get a chance to play against a Stompa, so they said bring it on, and I will. So last but absolutely not least, we have the flyers. Now, don't let looks fool you. They are both DACA jets. Now this one was one that I got as part of the Kill DACA bandwagon, but this one was a gift, and I was going to potentially repaint it until I realized that we had ourselves a purple orc flying it, and I was like, nope, this is perfect just the way it is. Now, mind you, when I say it's a gift, I mean that it was part of a lot that a friend bought with the intent that I would repaint everything. So don't think that it was something that was done specific for me. But that being said, when I went all in on these guys, which also some of the only decals that I've used, just because I wanted that extra Blood Axey vibe on it. And with these guys, I also came up with some of the longest names in the army. So the original purple one is Sky Captain Grokamungus Maglutta III. Because my friends wanted me to have an orc with an absolutely ridiculous name, because this was an awesome DACA jet with extra shooters that deserved it. So I had to oblige. And then with this one, because he was going to be so different, it was almost like a shadow of the other one, but we already have a shadow in there. So what were we going to do with this skit? Well, we had to go one even further. He's First Commander Skyrider, Voss Circle, Han Solo, the Phantom of the Wall. So this one got a namesake thanks to my friend who got it for me in the first place. And then it had kind of a basic base, and then we just rezazzed it all the way up. Another one of the Hobby Corners KFC challenges. So, and then I just love the little diorama style bases that I got with these. And these are the ones that actually made me brave enough to do the speed boss. So, now mind you, playing DACA jets in a list now, absolutely love them. I understand why you can't have more planes in your list though, because orc planes are dirt cheap, and man, is it awesome slinging 36 dice every time you get a shooting phase with these gits until they get taken down. Yeah, I love flyers, and are the main reason why I'm pushing towards building a speed WAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAAA that having a WA and a speed WA still counts as one Blood Axe Army. So I think this kind of validates that. I guess they were right. Yeah, so that's everybody. Wow. It is crazy. I was doing some math, talking about some stuff, and at the beginning of the year, I had just over about 1,200 points painted up, most of which was those kill teams and stuff that I was talking about. And then at the very first thing I wanted to accomplish was getting the Boyz done. And it was shortly after my wife and our family moved into our new house where I got my dedicated hobby space. And so with that, the ability to just kind of leave projects on the workbench without having to worry about the littles getting into it or anything like that, made it where I was able to just exponentially get through my backlog. So what's funny about that is my current work in progress bench actually has as many points on it right now as I started at the beginning of the year. So that is so nuts that I now have so much to paint. So by the time it's all done, I should have about 7,500 points. Everything I showed you guys today came up to about 6,000 points. So is that the biggest army in the world? Absolutely not. But is it the biggest purple army in the world? Maybe. And if it's not, it's getting there. So I definitely appreciate y'all sticking with me on this one. I hope I hit all those fancy little buttons that everyone was wanting me to hit when I was talking about all the different little things. And I appreciate you all being here, because if it wasn't for you guys in the first place, I would have never had the drive to push through so hard to get so much accomplished. So with that, I am going to have a little bit of off and on again time coming up, because as of the time of this video dropping, me and my wife are preparing to go for our induction for the last little fish to join the shoal. So we are super excited. Definitely don't be surprised if there's a little bit more family content coming in on this. Just talking about my life and whatnot in the hobby. But that being said, I'm definitely going to be pushing forward to kind of explaining more things, talk about some of those lists that I mentioned with the league. There's a new escalation league coming up here in the next few months, so we're going to join. I've gone to some tournaments now. Like, what? I enjoy it. So maybe one day, who knows? Maybe there'll be a list where my name is listed as, one of the top Blood Axe guys out there. I'm looking at you, hobbyist, first. All right. But in all seriousness, I definitely appreciate y'all sticking with me on this one. I definitely appreciate all the encouragement that you've given that led to this moment in the first place. So much love, and thank you so much for stopping in for more Misadventures of Mr. Fish. You guys have a great night.
Blah, 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 blah.